Okay, so a lot of these people that are going to be coming on, because we are recording, they're going to basically accept the recording part of it. We have some people out there already that have come aboard, and obviously we're going to wait maybe 5 minutes beyond the 2 o'clock point. And let's see if some people are shy. They're not going to show their face. Some people are not shy. They're welcome to come aboard. And my name is Cisco Meneses. I'm the founder of the National Firescape Association. And Lance, who are you?
Lance Luke, I'm a building consultant, construction engineer located in Honolulu, Hawaii.
There you go. I can only afford a palm tree, but you can afford to live there, which is great.
Yeah, I
So
have two
let's
palm
see. We
trees.
you got two palm trees.
Yeah.
I have to rent this one. That's kind of funny. So with that, I do have some people that I see out there. I got an Arnold, I got an Earl, I got Coconut Waikiki, Janet Lee. So if anybody wants to chat a little bit before we get going on this, and Cisco, you want to reposition, because as I look at Lance, you want to put it on this side, so maybe the camera's better on that side. So Lance, or anybody, if anybody has a question, just to start this off before we get into our actual seminar, let me know if you have a question. Otherwise, Lance, you and I are the ones that are going to be talking to each other, asking each other questions, and let's see where this all goes. So, Lance, you've been in the business how long?
Too long.
Too long, yeah.
Yeah. For 43 years.
43 years.
Yeah.
Well, even though I'm younger than you, Lance, I actually have been in this business over 50 years. My dad hijacked me as a pirate when I worked for the family business, which I believe you did too in some of the conversations you and I have had. But my dad grabbed me at 12. And so that puts me in the 50-year mark in dealing with, the egress systems out there nationwide. I'm out of Boston, even though I borrowed a palm tree. But we work nationwide. We have an office throughout the country. We have an office in San Francisco and Treasure Island, and we've been dealing nationwide with nothing but firescapes and balconies. One of the things we're going to be talking about, Lance, is going to be how California had a similar incident in 2019, actually 2017, and there was a collapse of a balcony with students on it, and a lot of them foreign students from primarily Ireland, and they actually fell. And 7 died instantly that day. There must have been about 20 or 25 people on this balcony, and the whole balcony gave way. And because of that, they changed the law that went into effect 2019, and now every 6 years in all of California, every balcony and railing must be examined by law under the code SB 721. We'll talk a little bit about that afterwards. But that's where we're at. We have some people here. If anybody has any comments or questions that they'd like to get, we have several people coming aboard. But Martin, we spoke briefly. I think he's from another hotel also. So we have hotel people here. We have city officials that should be coming aboard. We've invited fire prevention. We've invited the building department. And what we're going to do is take an incident that occurred to one hotel and say, is this possibly happening in your hotel? And you went to the hotel, correct, Lance? The day
Yeah,
the day it occurred, or the day after?
No, the 1 hour after the incident.
Wow. Who called you? Was it the hotel or was it news people?
No, it was the news people.
Yeah, they know right away. They monitor anything that's bad news.
In fact, I was out at the scene before them.
Really? Yeah, I know you live to the east of that.
Well, I was
Beautiful
already
hotel.
I was already in Waikiki at the time.
Oh,
Yeah, I was a judge for a Department of Education contest that they had.
gotcha. Well, the main thing that we're going to be talking about is how you and I, with our 50 years of experience, we see things that is really the life cycle of cement, the life cycle of iron, and how the two don't like each other and never have. never will. You know what I'm saying? And as we get into spalling, we're going to talk about how today rebar is now coated to basically stop what has occurred in old rebar and old cement when it comes to to what we are seeing today. And so a lot of these were untreated, uncoated rebar. A lot of this is untreated, uncoated iron that somehow marries the two together. And whether we like it or not, a lot of people are going to learn today that a 1/4 inch of brand new steel, you give it 25 to 55 years, and you sprinkle normal weather patterns to it, it'll grow at a standard rate. But you add water to it, concentrated water to it, you are now exponentially going to make a 1/4 inch of steel will grow to 1 inch of rust. And by the time a 1/4 inch of new steel becomes 1 inch of rust, there's nothing structural left about it, right, Lance? You know,
Yep, that's right.
rust has no structural value. It'll shear, it'll be a catastrophic event. And that's going to be one of our categories today. It's just this was a catastrophic event, and there's more to come. And that's what our belief is, that we have to warn people to say, hey, the condos, the hotels, the building owners who may own one apartment building that has these egresses, these balconies, this iron and cement mix. Today they're doing the right thing about it, but in the past they just married the two together, and there was cats and dogs, right, Lance?
Yep, that's right.
So let's take a look, see what time it is. It's 2:04, almost 2:05. Anybody have a question for us before we get started? Because about a minute from now, we'll just get going. And we've got a good crowd here, and people will just ask questions. It is open, so please don't just let us talk, because it'll be me and Lance. What I want you to do is, raise your hand or just ask a question. We'll pause the seminar, and we'll answer the question, because your question may answer everybody's concerns. And so there should be no question that you guys can ask us that we haven't answered in the past. Okay? So so Lance, as they say, that as it tick-tocks and counts down, what do you like to say? Because you and I had a conversation in regards to just your history with the mental attitude of all the people who own buildings, condos, and hotels. Is maintenance on the forefront? Is that what you've seen in your history of 40 years? Do you see people that are just sort of in a pro maintenance attitude, or you see everybody as sort of in the, you know what, if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality, which is the rest of the US. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's
The mentality
similar.
is,
Yeah, that's similar how it is in Hawaii. Some buildings that I go to, they don't even have a maintenance program. And some, they have an elaborate, like a high-rise building in downtown Honolulu. It's a condo hotel. They have a 3-ring binder, big binder with their maintenance manual and all the procedures. And when I asked for it, they hardly could find it, and it was collecting dust. No one opened it up to look at it. So although they have a maintenance program in place, they have to follow it. So proactive is a key. We're always about safety, health and safety of buildings. So, oh, I see the nice PowerPoint.
well, for those of us that are Mac people, PowerPoint and Keynote is an Apple product, and Keynote is the Spielberg version of the presentation, PowerPoint. So hopefully you'll like it. It comes, it's going to have some bells and whistles. So let's you and I speak, Lance. This is the start of the seminar. And
Great.
and what do we have? We have a situation that occurred. I don't believe this was isolated. I think this is just the beginning. This is the canary in the coal mine, not only for this hotel, but for every hotel out there that is of age. This hotel, this wing got built 55 years ago. So here's our concerns. We're gonna get into more details, and this is what fell from the sky, and it landed, between sunbathers. And this is the luckiest thing that ever happened in Hawaii, happened a few days ago. And that is that huge slab of concrete fell in between all these people that were sunbathing, as identified by these towels. These towels represent humans who were all there sunbathing. And then this incident occurred. Okay. So we're going to talk about procedures on inspecting, procedures on load testing, maintenance programs. Between you and I, we're gonna kick out some great ideas here. Okay. So
All right.
again, I encourage anyone and everyone that has a question as we proceed, please unmute yourself, ask the question, and then we'll proceed with the seminar. We've got 2 hours to really explain in detail and answer any and all your questions. Okay. So what's the agenda today? So we're going to try to talk about this catastrophic event, and we're going to do a news recap. In case you missed the news stories, it was all over the news in Hawaii. We're going to play a few of these, and so that everybody can get back up to speed on just exactly what occurred a few days ago. Okay. No loss of life, no liability, right? Or, as we say here, was there liability? I don't know if any of these on the right here. Was there any liability? So what occurs here is that somebody who almost died at your place you're gonna have liability right there. These people. Now, I'm an expert witness. Lance, you're an expert witness. You've been in places where people are injured, they collect money, and where people are dead, they collect money. And when people almost get hurt, they collect money. So there's no loss of life, but no liability. But yep, there's some leftover hand grenades or what do you call it? Future possibilities of events happening because this building is 55 years old. Okay. Credentials of our expert witness. I'm going to speak about me. Lance is going to speak about himself. What's the main causes of the event? Me and Lance are going to throw ideas out of what, if we got pulled in to this case, what would we say? What could have happened? So you'll see two experts discussing spalling and rusty iron. Okay. So we're going to also review the spalling life cycle. How many years does it take for something to happen when everything is normal? And what's going to happen when something is abnormal? How does that accelerate the life cycle of a piece of steel? Okay. And the spalling of a piece of cement that is together, but only to have the steel tear it apart. How right now at the end of all this, what we're going to tell you is what choices do you have today? Are you going to just maintain because you're not so bad? Are you going to reinforce because there were some issues and you have to reinforce the system immediately? Or are you're scheduled to replace? You have no choice. You have to replace. Okay. And then at the end of this, for a little bit of time, we're only going to discuss additional egress concerns that you should be addressing that you may not understand you need to address. Some of you have, aside from this tower, and Moana has this, they have fire escapes on the older part of the building that nobody's touching. So let's talk about those. Okay. Let's start off, everybody, by watching the news piece.
Scary moments when a railing fell from a balcony at the Moana Surfrider. It came crashing down onto the beach below. Scary moments when a railing fell from a balcony at the Moana Surfrider. It came crashing down onto the beach below.
Emergency personnel say 2 people had minor injuries from falling debris, but both refused to go to the hospital. Bryce Moore joins us live from Waikiki. Bryce, what can you tell us?
Good evening to you both. And yes, you can see behind me that officials quickly cordoned off the area where the railing came crashing down to. Now, I'm going to take a step aside so you can take a look at the room where it indeed fell from. And I actually spoke to the hotel guest whose room it fell from. Now, he didn't want to go on camera, but he shared with us that he was there when it happened. And both he and nearby bystanders are all extremely thankful that the situation didn't end much worse.
Walking into the room, just bringing some luggage from my son and daughter-in-law who just got here. The room wouldn't be ready till 3 o'clock, so we were putting it in there. As we opened the door, we heard a loud crash, and my daughter-in-law and wife went through, They saw it. Have you ever watched like when they implode hotels in Vegas? That's what it sounded like to me. It was a crash like I've never heard before. I'm thinking, how is that coming out of my room? I saw where it landed and I thought, thank God. I mean, because 2 feet either way, it would have probably killed somebody, as heavy as it is.
All the chairs were set up. Everyone was there.
Were there people in chairs?
Yeah, there's people there underneath, it looked like, yeah.
Now, emergency medical services did say that 2 people were hit by falling debris down below, but the injuries were minor and no one was transported to the hospital. Now, the Moana Surfrider, we did reach out to them and they confirmed the incident happened, and they said that a statement will be forthcoming, which we'll bring to you as soon as it comes in. As far as the hotel guest, he's been moved to a room on the 11th floor, and he tells me he's happy, but he won't be going out on his balcony anytime soon. For now, I'm Bryce Moore reporting to you live from Waikiki, KHON2 News, working for Hawaii. Back to you two.
So Lance, this last statement that he had from the person who got to go to the 11th floor, and that guy is already questioning whether or not all the railings, and it's not just the iron, Lance. What fell was a huge slab of cement that had a small piece of railing on top of it. So the railing was actually a one-piece cement attachment that makes it's a cement railing with a iron on top. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, we call that a concrete railing wall because most of the railing was a concrete wall, and then you have a little section of metal railing on the top. Ironically, he got moved to the 11th floor, which is a floor exactly like the same setup with that concrete railing wall.
Well, he's already doing something. He's saying, I'm not going near that railing because so he's already questioning the integrity of the whole building, which is 55 years old. So let's move on to another one. This is another great piece here.
Moments in Waikiki this afternoon after a railing falls from a hotel room balcony, narrowly missing beachgoers below.
At least 2 people were treated for injuries. Our Jolani Martinez joins us live near the Moana Surfrider where it happened. Jolani.
Mark, Ash, the metal railing that fell earlier this afternoon from around the 5th floor of the Moana Surfrider Hotel is still out here. It's been blocked off. Have my photog show you. It's been blocked off with a fence, yellow tape, and lounge chairs. You can also see that it fell where umbrellas and chairs are set up for guests to rent. Fire crews say the railing didn't hit anyone directly. EMS said 2 people refused to be transported to the hospital. HFD says 1 person was being treated by Ocean Safety when they arrived. Another person suffered a minor injury while escaping the falling railing. Right now, it's unclear what caused the railing to give way, but we spoke with one of the guests booked for that room. He did not want his face shown, but told us it all happened as he and his family walked into the room to drop off some bags.
Opened the door, we heard a loud crash, and my daughter-in-law and wife went through. They saw it. They saw the railing in the section going over. I was the 4th one through the door, but as we went through, it was like kind of surreal. I mean, you don't expect to see that. Again, 5:30 this morning, I was on that railing, on my phone talking.
Those who were on the beach say there were people lounging below.
All of a sudden it sounded like they were doing some kind of like demolition construction so loud I can't even describe it. And then I look up and it seemed like it was happening in slow motion, honestly, like falling very slowly, and there was a woman directly under, so we were all screaming, move, move, and it, like I said, just looked like it was happening in slow motion. She luckily got out of the way and no one was injured to my knowledge, but it was really a crazy situation.
Again, staff have blocked off the area, but you can see that brown pole hanging. It looks like it was from the top of the railing and ripped off. And you can also see the fallen piece clipped the railing below. We've reached out to the Moana Surfrider Hotel for comment and are waiting to hear back. Reporting live from Waikiki, Jolani Martinez, Hawaii News Now.
So, Lance, what we're going to be talking about is that this railing actually fell down to a walkway down below. As you can see, in once we do the next video, and it basically rolled off the top of there and rolled down and fell into the below. There was such enough force, and we'll show that this thing didn't just fall into the sand. It actually fell down below and then rolled forward and then fell down again into the sand mix. right? Is that what you and I
Yeah,
have seen?
that's what it looked like.
Yeah. So we're gonna basically show that this actually the fall was reduced because it fell from the fifth down to a walkway and then fell one story further down to the sand. So the velocity was reduced greatly by it hitting the piece below, but it needed to go somewhere. It was either going to bounce or was going to roll, and it rolled off that lower section. We'll show that in a second. Let's talk about this next video of the final piece here of the piece. So it did hit all the major news
This morning,
stations.
Oahu investigators are looking into why a hotel balcony railing collapsed and fell onto Waikiki Beach. Take a look at this. The railing missing from a fifth-floor hotel room at the Moana Surfrider. It fell Tuesday afternoon onto the beach below, sending beachgoers running. The Honolulu Fire Department says no one was directly impacted, although one person suffered a minor injury while getting out of the way from the falling railing. HFD also says when firefighters arrived, Ocean Safety was treating another person who was then transferred to paramedics. Here's what one witness had to say.
I was on the beach by Duke's and I heard some loud shouting, and I turned and saw the balcony falling. First it was that slab and then the railing, and it just fell on top of where people were laying on lounge chairs. Luckily nobody got hurt or killed, so those people were okay, but it was quite startling.
In a statement to Island News, the hotel said, quote, "We are looking into an incident that occurred involving a balcony in our tower wing. We take this matter very seriously. The safety and security of our guests and employees is our top priority."
So, as they say, thank God a lot of people yelled. Thank God a lot of people, assisted in. But it was one of these. It could have been a lot worse. But it was a catastrophic event that occurred. It was 55 years in the making. Let's get to who we are in this. In order for us to say such things, people are going to question who we are. First of all, I'm the founder of the National Fire Escape Association. My dad, who's 86, just recently got out of the business, but I learned quite a bit from my dad, and then I took it to the next level. I'm an expert witness on a lot of fire escape cases where the injury is to the tenant, the injury is to the fireman, and again, there's injuries and there's also deaths that have been involved, and I brought in over $150 million nationwide on events where fire escapes were let go for 25, 50, 75 years. And thank God we have a life cycle of rust, because it speaks for itself. Spalling has a life cycle that Lance will talk about. And so I take this nationwide. So I have taught from Seattle to San Diego, Chicago to Texas, and from Maine to Florida. And it's all continuing education classes. So these firefighters, these building inspectors, they all need credits of anywhere from 3 hours to 6 hours. I teach both. If any of you ever want to see my typical class, go onto YouTube and just type in fire escape seminar, and you'll see that I'm the only one doing seminars in the nation. I'm the only one doing fire escape seminars. And that's because it's the bastard child of egress. Not everybody cares about it. And just so you know, it's not a big, heavy topic for the fire prevention in Honolulu, because unless an incident occurs, nobody's going to talk about it. So everybody be aware that, this is coming, and I'm going to be speaking to you about how balcony rails are going to be coming up. But Lance, it's your turn. What makes you an expert besides age?
Yeah, well, I'm older than you, but don't push it.
Don't push it,
before I start that, I just want to express my appreciation as well as with Cisco for all the people attending and those who are going to be watching later. This is a very important subject. I've been a construction guy for about 43 years now. I wrote a couple books. I always give webinars. I speak throughout the country on mainly building and construction topics. And as Cisco mentioned, I'm also an expert witness, mainly on construction litigation cases, but also some personal injury that involve building failures. So we're happy to be here today to let you guys know we have important information to share regarding building safety. So I'm glad I got invited to speak. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's continue on. What do we have? We have the Moana. The building we're talking about is to the left, but above and beyond the railings and the balcony issues that they also have a fire escape system here facing the ocean. Okay. And so this is the oldest hotel, 1901. It was the center portion, and they started building additions. And so 1901, 1952, I believe this east wing was added. And then in 1969, which I'm going to show you, that's when that west wing, after the Sheraton bought out these people. So beautiful hotel. I know this hotel. I stayed in this hotel in the west, in the east wing. Love the hotel, and it kind of, this is one of the reasons that I want to do this activity right now, this thing about balconies and fire escapes, is because like many of you, you have an older building that not only do you have railings and balconies, but you also have fire escapes or cement stair egress systems that are external to the building. So they also have, as you can see here, not only that beautiful tower that they built in 1969, but they have these fire escape systems. So everything you see here on the left and everything you see down there on the right, those don't belong to tenants. This is how people would get out and get some fresh air in case the building's on fire. And there's an internal staircase inside both of these. And a lot of times these internal staircases are metal, still exposed to the weather, and it's a 50-50. They're not enclosed so that the smoke gets trapped. They're open to the outside so that if there is any smoke that's in that fire tower, the tenants, they can get out. But as you can also see here to the left, those waiting balconies over there, which is made, it's called a area of refuge, where you would go waiting for firemen to save you, or that's where you would go to take a breath because there's too much smoke in the building. So 1901 building, 1952 building, and then a 1969 building is the big tower on the west. Okay. So, hey, Lance, let's get into this. But Lance, before we get going, let's see if anybody has a question. Anybody have a question out there? Lance, silence tells us that you and I need to continue talking. Lance.
Well, I do have a question here. I do apologize, Cisco.
Yes.
From the audience. They want to know how old were these balconies that collapsed?
Okay, that's a great question. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit. This is a 55-year-old building, built in 1969. These railings and these cement with railings, these are panels. What do you call them, Lance?
Precast concrete panels.
Perfect. So these precast concrete panels, they basically are held by these inserts. So if I'm not mistaken, these precast panels would have the iron installed inside the precast first, maybe an angle inside the precast or a straight piece of flat material, maybe half-inch thick. Would you agree? Or
yeah, I'd have to actually see the actual plans, which I'm trying to get a hold of so I can really study this even more.
Perfect. So, but basically, as you can see, the panel and the railing, like this other side here, was lifted by a crane as a one piece, brought and then basically injected into these areas here, 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 and here, and here. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of metal that were basically injected into the floors of these. Okay, do you agree with that?
Yeah, what it looks like is the metal pieces that you're talking about are concrete anchors that connect the wall, the side wall or the railing to the actual lanai slab. And it looks like in addition to the poured in place lanai slab, there's about a 1-inch topping over that probably covered up.
Yeah, I'll get a better
anchors.
picture. I'm going to get closer. But
Okay.
just so that everybody understands, what me and Lance have been talking about is that there's definitely corrosion happening over 55 years. There's definitely corrosion here to the extreme right, but my God, there's extreme corrosion here to the left. And it is my belief that the water that would come from normal rain would basically trap inside this, because these cast in place panels, they don't rest on the floors. They basically are attached, and they create a 90 over here in this corner, right? And whatever water needs to come in here, and it could be substantial torrential rain, it got to go somewhere. And I got closer pictures, but I believe there was a separation, or water was coming in here much more than over here to the extreme right. So that's my basis to start with. You agree with that, Lance? That we definitely have water intrusion more to the left than more to the right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
But for sure, 55 years, it didn't leave this one to the extreme right alone. It's hitting that one just under natural, right? Elements of rain and the sweat of cement, the rebar doing its job, and the metal that's embedded in one piece of cement sticking into another piece of cement. They never like each other. And because it was 55 years ago, Lance, do you think these are galvanized embedded pieces?
Yeah, most likely. But even if it was non-galvanized, even if it was stainless steel, there still could be an issue because of, like you said, the water, this humidity, other factors that cause
Of course,
metal to corrode.
The natural life cycle of steel embedded in any cement.
Yeah, and the location.
I'm gonna contradict with you. I believe these were not galvanized, because you get to see galvanized happening more in the 70s, in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? That's when you start galvanized became a norm. Otherwise, what I've seen in my lifetime of dealing with fire escapes is that it wasn't until the late 80s or 90s that galvanized became written in architectural plans, that whatever steel is going to go there, especially in front of the ocean, I want galvanized to be the base. And that's not the case in Hawaii. Some of the iron that I've seen, any iron that I've seen when I visited Hawaii twice in my lifetime, I've been there for 2 weeks at a time, and I went around, I saw that anything iron was in a deplorable condition because it wasn't galvanized. Because galvanization would have to happen most likely off island and then brought in and shipped. And so that extra cost a lot of times just keeps things in raw steel. Okay. So let's get closer. Let's see what we have here. This is the what you and I have indicated that it is in there. And like you said, it already separated. You're telling me that there's two pieces of cement here. There's the cement from the pour, and then you think there's a second pour before they put in the tile? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, it looks like a topping slab over the original poured in place lanai slab, and then tile over that. The problem with conducive spalling conditions is water is penetrating through, could be the grout in the tile or any kind of unsealed areas. You could have a crack somewhere, water's going in, and the water is not fresh water. Even if it was fresh water, clean, no chemicals, it still could cause corrosion. But the problem gets exacerbated because the water is salt water, rainwater, heavy corrosive environment, because this hotel is right on the beach, basically. So you have the trade winds that blow a lot of salt. There's chlorides and everything. So that's a major contributing factor to spalling repair and corrosion on any kind of metal. It doesn't matter what kind of metal it is, steel, iron, stainless steel, galvanized, whatever. It doesn't matter. I've seen all types corrode.
Right. And so with this blow up picture that I'm looking at on the top right hand corner, and again, I'm a rust guy because I have to deal with fire escapes and how they rust two pieces of metal and separate. I also see rust that separates cement, and it's pretty uniform. Right now, to the extreme left, I have a 1/2 inch to 3/4 wedge. But to the extreme right, I have only about a 3/8 to 1/2 inch wedge. So if to the extreme right, the extreme left is 3/4 to 1 inch of opening, and to the extreme right is only 3/8 to half inch of opening, it's an indicator that there is 2 pieces of cement here, and a lot of times they don't marry. And what you need is anything that wedges it, and so the rust growth, whereas a quarter inch of new steel will become 1 inch of rust, is pretty evident on the right side of your photograph. And what's that called when iron just starts, layering the layers of rust? What's that called, Lance?
Well, that's oxidation and
Yep.
just corrosion in general. And just so that the viewers know that when you have a piece of rebar and it starts corroding, it could corrode and expand up to 7 times the actual size of the rebar.
So a quarter
and
inch of rust becomes 1 inch. I mean, a quarter inch of steel becomes 1 inch of rust. And that's what I see there, layered rust. I don't see much more steel there. And a lot of times what we would see, you can correct me, I would see some silver. If there was a shearing of any kind, I'm not looking at any shearing right now, indicating that something was still holding on. This was being held by a hair, right?
Yeah, we're not seeing any really
Silver.
observable pieces of metal at all. It's
Yeah, shear action happening.
Well, part of it is gone and the other part is corroded. So, I
Correct.
mean, if we took apart a little section of the top layer, I'm sure we could find, more rust. But remember that, this is supposed to be a 3 to 4 inch slab and it has reinforcing bars in it. So if we say we took the top layer off,
Yep.
and looked, we're going to see basically grids that look like basically squares where the rebar's tied together. And I'm pretty sure the condition of the rebar is corroded.
So listen, Lance, on this underneath here where my arrows, can you see my arrows,
Yeah.
my cursor? Right. See all this bubbling here? That's an indication that this is a corner that was getting so much water, it actually permeated through the cement slab, which I believe is a 6-inch slab. That's the norm, isn't it? For that slab to be 6 inches. And then that top slab is in 1.5 inches, maybe 2 at the most, including the tile. I've got indications that water has made it into this corner because the water is not being channeled away enough. So whenever there's a huge amount of rain, it sits in that corner, permeates as best it can before it evaporates, or maybe there was another way to get this water out of here, but I'm not seeing it. But I'm seeing an indication in this corner that water permeated through the entire 6-inch slab. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, so let's say we remove a section of that corner, that top section. We're going to see corroded rebar because if you look at the bubbling paint, what's happening is the water on the top of the lanai is, like you said, seeping through, and the concrete has rebar in it. So the rebar is getting corroded, and I'm pretty sure it's causing spalling.
Expansion.
And we can't really see it, but I guess more investigation when you start taking sections apart, doing destructive testing and documenting it. I'm sure they're going to note concrete spalling, cracking, corroded rebar, and that kind of thing.
So for our people listening, they're going to say, listen, when you look at cement and it has these kind of bubbles underneath, you are being given a sign that there's things going on from above, because whatever membrane you have above is not holding or is letting water permeate in that corner. The rebars are the first thing that's going to show down below with rusty stains and or paint bubbling, because as the rebar expands, it opens up a little water trickle area, and then basically if it can get through in its entirety as just water, it has no choice but now to push the paint along, and that's a bubbling paint is an indicator that there was a huge amount of water concentration in that corner every rainstorm, correct?
Yeah, I want to add too that in the normal course of construction, when you first build the lanai concrete slab, before you put anything on it, you waterproof it. So there should be a layer of waterproofing, and I'm not sure, how what kind of system they use, where it was a 3-part, 5-part, or whatever. But
Yeah.
if
And here's
if
an
in fact,
exposed rebar for you, Lance, right
Yeah,
there.
well-
I have exposed rebar right there. That's the first spall. She already blew out this corner, and that's the rebar right there. That's brown. You know what I'm saying? If this was fresh today, it would have fresh looking concrete and it would have fresh looking rebar. But right now, aside from the inserts growing to 1 inch, the rebar already spalled. You know what I'm saying? And there's plenty of water getting here because I'm getting front spalling happening, and that's all from rebar. That's not even from the inserts.
well,
And it
that's the
gets better to
scary.
the right.
That's
But,
the
you know,
scary part of it, because we're only looking at one balcony here, and this
Yeah, I
hotel
know.
has numerous balconies.
Yeah. As I say, you and I agree, this is not an isolated incident. This is a canary in the coal mine, not only for the hotel itself, but for all hotels near the ocean that are, 25 to 75 years old or greater. But this is one of the oldest hotels. But at the same time, everybody, if you're 25 to 50 years old, and you don't have a maintenance program of any kind, this is already happening at your hotel. That's the life cycle of spalling. And Lance, you're going to go into deeper on this. So
Yeah,
Lance, let's talk.
Well, let me tag on to what you said. You mentioned hotels, but we have to add in not only hotels, but any type of building, whether it's a condominium, whether it's an office building, any apartment building, any type of building that has railings in it. The building doesn't have to be near the ocean. It could be miles away.
Correct.
So
Yes.
if you're in Hawaii, it could be in Waikiki, Mo'iliili, Hawaii Kai.
Yeah.
Away from the water, it's still
In
going
the
to have the
mountains.
same. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still going to have the
Higher
same
elevations.
conditions. Right.
Yeah. So let's go at the sequence of events, what occurred. So definitely, this sheared. This was a catastrophic event. It sheared every insert. And every insert didn't have to shear. There was nothing there structurally. But eventually, whatever was left of any of the rust inserts, they basically just says, yeah, we can't hold it. And the guy said, I was there at 5:30 in the morning having my coffee and a smoke, and it didn't fall. And then he mentions that his son-in-law and his daughter walk in and they see the collapse. The shake of the door, the opening up of a slider. I mean, a heavy pigeon? What happened here for this thing by itself to basically shear off the building? Okay, it sheared off the building. It ripped off the top railing round, right? As you can see down below. And then all of a sudden it hit that corner of where the guy is to the right. You see that it definitely hit that corner. And then it bounced where the guy is, and there must be about 8 feet of roof there, right? You estimate about 8 feet of a bump out? And it basically came down, damaged the lower rail, hit where that guy was, right? And then it continued to roll. It had so much kinetic energy that it just kept going. And where did it roll to? It rolled to here. When I first saw this picture, I thought it was the railing embedded in the dirt. I said, oh, a piece of railing embedded itself in the dirt. Only to find out that how that extra sand got on top, I don't know. But look at all the people it didn't kill who were sunbathing on the right. All the people it didn't kill or hurt sunbathing to the left. Of all the places it could have fallen, it hurt 2 people, enough scratches, whatever. Death was avoided, crazy injury was avoided, and it hit the ground. And let's take a peek. Let's take a closer peek. You want to make any comments? These towels represent people that ran away.
Yeah, I would like to make a comment. Somebody else looked at this photo, before you installed the rectangle red lines, and they said, wow, this is interesting because I see the metal railing, but what happened to the concrete wall that you were telling me about? And I said, look closely. And he looked closely. He said, I thought that was sand. I said, no, that's actually concrete that fell off, right? That's the railing wall that fell off onto the sand. The reason why there's all that sand there is if you have some heavy weight and you let's say you threw a heavy object into the sand, the sand's going to kick up and land partially on that object. So if you look, there's a lot of sand that's covered up that wall. So it looks like it's only sand, but if you look closer, you can see concrete.
So there it is. That slab, if it hit anybody, it would cause, I believe, instant death. The railing got bent up a little bit simply because it hit some of these chairs. The slab is 6 inches thick. It's a one-piece concrete, and it didn't crack. I don't see a crack. I could be wrong. Maybe this is the crack right here. You know what I'm saying? It split into two pieces. I think it did shatter here. But look at all the inserts. What I'm supposed to see here is pieces of steel sticking up 4 to 6 inches. Every one of these was 4 to 6 inches. It's already embedded into it 4 inches. When they made it, the steel is embedded. I would assume these are all half-inch thick raw steel. And it was embedded into the floors up above at least 4 to 6 inches, maybe longer usually. And look, these are all the points where it's sheared. Look at the end here. Look how it destroyed the cement here at the end. This is from the fall. This to me, Lance, see that piece over there? It looks intact. I think when it came down and hit that railing down below, I think it hit here, indicating to me that this thing, first of all, is in reverse. I think this piece here and this area here, when it's the piece that would be upstairs to the left. I think this thing came down. This is the extreme left side, and that's the extreme right side because it's intact. I think it sheared first on the left side, came down, hit the railing, hit that walkway, and then it tumbled forward, maybe as in a pirouette. Maybe it was standing up and it pirouetted off of that roof and then came down exactly in this one area that would hurt no one. What's your take on this?
Could be, but I think further investigation would tell exactly what happened. But I want to add that even if the guy that was on that floor start kicking that railing wall, you know, with all his might, kicking it and doing whatever, and let's say you brought in 2 300-pound football players and they started kicking it or whatever, that wall shouldn't fall down. So the idea is this wall actually fell down on its own. And it's even more
concerning,
scarier because of that situation.
Yeah. The guy was there at 5:30 in the morning having a cup of coffee and a cigarette. His daughter and his son-in-law there, and they're walking in the room because the room is not ready for them. They're just walking in the room, dropping their luggage, and as soon as they dropped their luggage, that was enough vibration to go out, plus maybe a heavy pigeon that landed on the railing, and then this thing just took off by itself. And by the way, he was not the only one to witness it. So many of the people that were watching from down below watched it fall, and those witnesses would be great to tell us how it fell straight down, how it clipped the railing down below, and then how it hit the walkway, and then how it tumbled forward and into the sand. Again, this may be lost, but we may be able to have some witnesses that may come forward and help. So let's talk about it. So right now it's been temporarily secured. Again, that room is probably not making any money for a long while, but you know, I still have a slab. That's what the slab on the left looked like when it used to be on the right. And so, like you said, it was catastrophic. Okay. The question is not an isolated incident on the structure. It's built in 1969. It's over 55 years old, exposed to the elements. So every one of these is exposed to the elements. And as long as you've got it sealed, as long as you have a way for the water to run off that comes on a daily rainstorm, and you do some routine maintenance. But if you haven't done any maintenance, this is not an isolated incident. There's more hand grenades that could go off on this building as well as this building right next to it. Every building to either side, this is the canary in the coal mine. This was the first one that we can go play with, but right now everybody in the entire like you said, it's not just on the ocean front, it's everybody. If you haven't been maintaining your building in the past 25 to 50 years, you are subject to spalling. All right. This is a concern in California, just so you guys know. So they had a catastrophic event that happened in 2017. A balcony collapsed on this apartment building that was no more than 25 years old. It was wood-based. They had about 20 people on this balcony partying. And when it collapsed, it dropped all the 20 people down to the balcony below, as well as it dropped 7 people, I think 5 stories down, 7 people from Ireland, kids who came over every year to work at the bars and stuff. 7 of them died. 2 years later, this is the California code that came out. And sometimes, code is written in blood. And so it took that catastrophic event in Berkeley, California, to then in 2019, just at the beginning of the pandemic with COVID, what happened was they put this law out that says, hey, all building standards, all decks and balconies are required to be inspected every 6 years. Forget Farscape already has its own 5-year rule. This is every wood deck in all of California must be inspected every 6 years, and you must have proof, must be done by a third party. So anything that's elevated, anything that's an area of refuge, anything that's a Romeo and Juliet balcony, any decks on the back of your building must be inspected, because it took 7 dead Irish kids to basically force this upon all of California. And like you said, Lance, you can't ignore it for too much longer, because pretty soon, since code is written in blood, the last thing you need is some more fatalities that affect the tourism industry, that all of a sudden things are going to start coming in, especially with inspections. So let's move on. Lance, you were you had an interview with Diane. I'll play a little bit of it, Lance, and then we're going to go into your class of you teaching us about spalling. Okay. So let me play a little bit for you guys.
Related incident. Is that called spalling when the concrete rots within when the metal rots inside the concrete?
Yeah, that's actually a condition of spalling. Spalling occurs when water enters the concrete and hits the reinforcing steel called rebar, and then the rebar expands. And when the rebar expands, it cracks the concrete around it. So that's basically the definition of spalling. And spalling is due to environmental conditions such as humidity, rain, sun, salt water, salt air. In Hawaii, there's a lot of salt in the air, and because this hotel is located right on the beach, because of the trade winds, it gets hit with a lot of salt air landing on everything, the concrete walls, the lanai floor, and that kind of thing, metal railing.
How long do you think that this was rusting?
It didn't happen overnight. I would say between 5 to 8 years, something like that.
So I lived in a condo where we, had a lot of spalling work, and it took like 2 years. It takes forever, it seems, to do it, and it's really noisy. But what I don't know is, are the hotel engineers required to run around and check for these kinds of issues? Would they have known? Do you think they were remiss in checking?
Well, it should be a protocol for each building, whether it's a hotel or condo, apartment, office building, and such, to have some kind of preventive maintenance schedule and inspection. Going around looking at these conditions like peeling paint, rust stains around metal railings and metal objects and so forth. And then at certain time points, say maybe 5-10 years, they should hire an independent structural engineering company to do investigation. It's not, from what I saw, looking at other balconies in a hotel, it wasn't that obvious. Although I did see some bubbling paint on the underside of some of the lanais, which would be indicative of possibly water going through the tile or the surface of the lanai slab and then penetrating down into the concrete. So that's another indication. But I know that I work with a lot of condo buildings, and I know a lot of them do not have inspections done. So it should be best practice to have inspections done, even by the in-house personnel, but hire third-party inspectors and consultants to help with that. I know money's an issue, and that's probably why they don't do it, but that could save in the long run. Sometimes there's what needs to be done is destructive testing, and that's like cutting pieces of concrete out, looking at the attachment of the railing, base, the anchor points, and all that for rust and corrosion. Sometimes that needs to be done. It's costly and expensive because on a high-rise building, you have to rig the building, like go on the roof and hang their scaffolding system and drop down on the building. So of course, to set that up, costs thousands of dollars and then your manpower. And so for the fix on this condition, it's going to require a lot of inspections, destructive testing, engineering work, some initial design work, and then the fix. The fix is going to.
So while I have you here, Lance, and you obviously go, this was an 18-minute interview you did. We clipped about six minutes of it. And Lance, you've basically hit it on the button right now. There needs to be an investigation. If there was a routine investigation that involved destructive, and they basically sampled various parts of a building, and they basically went to say, how are my connections of these cement pieces? Right now, they have no choice but to get into that mode and sample all over the building and say, okay, what is the case? Because this one is this extreme might be the extreme for every one of these balconies, or this extreme could be an isolated situation where all of a sudden, yes, there was a huge amount of water getting in at that particular cracks. And all of a sudden, when they do their investigation of all the balconies, they say, you know what? I found 7 that were very similar where water was definitely getting in there. Let's fix those right away, either from the rooftop coming down and fixing or vice versa. But it looks like you hit all the buttons. Would you like? I think the next step we're going to be asking you is, can you give us a quick little class on spalling? Can you do that? Because if anybody wants to watch that interview with Diane, it's 18 minutes long, and you go into pricing, and you go not on this job, but how to avoid pricing. But you want to give us a little quick class on spalling?
Yeah. Before I do that, I mentioned at the interview that the cost to repair is going to be in the millions of dollars. It's not going to be a cheap fix. So along those lines, basically, let's start with, I'll give you 1 minute spalling 101. Oh, well, you kind of have it here. Let's look at the slides. I actually created this is what was from my webinar, concrete spalling. So main cause of spalling: rain, sun, wind. You got a lot of corrosive environment, humidity, salt air. Be sure to look at your building. If it has failing paint, bubbling paint, no paint, if you can see bare concrete or streaks of concrete, you're overdue. It's time to paint. Normally, the cycle for painting is like 8 to 10 years. And then you do a condition survey of your building. You confirm quantities. Usually that's done with a consultant, engineer, or a contractor. And we're talking about a combination of concrete spalling that would include railing. So in inspection methodology, there's non-destructive where it's visual, we're just looking at stuff, and then we got destructive where it's sounding. We take chains or a hammer, start pounding areas of concrete. Like you see right there, right? You can see the rust stains already. So something is going on there. What's causing the rust? Is it rebar rusting? Is it the railing that's rusting? But definitely that's cause for concern.
And if I may, the great thing about iron, it will give you a showing. It'll show itself in brown, rusty. We call it dragon tears, you know what I'm saying? But basically, it'll give you years in advance notice that something is happening. And after you paint over it and it gets brown again, you're basically covering up something that it's trying to tell you, I have a problem. Water is getting in through my porous concrete. It's attacking the non-coated rebar, and it's only a matter of time before you basically have a problem with the slab and the iron that I'm showing. I'm giving you notice. This is the bell that goes off when iron doesn't like concrete.
Yeah, but when you see the rust stains, don't just paint over it, right?
Oh, I know, but some people do.
Oh yeah, they do, and then later on there's a problem. So
Yeah, you know what
gathering
they do?
information.
You know what they do with the cruise boats when they pull into a lot of the Caribbean islands? Basically, they've always put a guy out there just painting the boat white. So if there's any rusty streaks on a cruise boat, there's a guy that paints it every time it pulls into a dock. But they do have a maintenance program that every so often, when it's in dry dock, they basically go in and attack the source of that rust because they have a maintenance program. But in the meantime, there is painting cover up on cruise boats, but there's also painting covering up in a lot of these apartments and condos and hotels.
That's right. So continuation with the spalling, gather all the information you can, compile all the results, and then let's go to the next slide. Types of spalling by location. Overhead horizontal spalls, which is your ceiling, and your horizontal means your lanai slab, or overhead is your ceiling. Vertical spalls is by walls. So anytime you have any walls, vertical areas of concrete, that's spalled, that's the location. So spalling, when it's determined, the contractors bid on it, they're going to bid on types of spall, overhead, vertical, and so forth. Here's good definitions. The leading edge is the edge right at their lanai. And you can see that's like very spalled. You got rusted rebar. And then there's two
Explain
types
what
of,
a lanai is, Lance.
oh,
What's
it's
a
a
lanai?
lanai or balcony where you're in a hotel room or your condo, you walk out to look at the view. That's what the lanai or balcony is. Now, this
Okay.
one doesn't have any railing because they removed the railing to fix the spalling.
Yep.
Now, horizontal, let's talk about a lanai slab or walkway. There's what's called a partial depth, which is not all the way through, and then a full depth, the image on the right, that's a walkway of a hotel. And you see how bad it is? It's all the way through, so they have to demo practically the whole walkway in order to repair. I mean, you're talking about building from scratch here. That's a actual hotel that I worked on. So this could be a condition at a lot of hotels, except it's not known because it's covered up and painted.
Well, let's just make sure everybody understands. You always have three options if time is on your side. One is you can maintain. You know, it's growing. It has its life cycle. You're going to slow down the life cycle. You'll never stop it. You just can slow it down with membranes, with maintenance, and you just maintain. But then eventually you're going to have to reinforce so that you can keep what was built there. And reinforcement is just that. It's going to need some help so that basically you can buy a little bit more time with reinforcement. And then if you have no more time, it's called replacement. So every one of these people, if they were to get a proper inspection, they would be told by somebody like yourself to say, listen, we can maintain. We're going to have to reinforce in 5 to 10 years. But, you know, I'm looking at the lifespan that you have of this balcony is going to be 25 years from now. Prepare yourself to replace whatever the situation may be, because it's going to need heavy, because we can't stop what's already starting in slabs that have untreated rebar inside. We can slow it way the hell down, but we'll never stop it, because just under natural humidity and natural porous of a cement, they'll get wet and they'll dry all by themselves. You're just stopping additional water intrusion, but you know what? You'll never stop it. So this is just, we're buying time. And then from you, and every time you go and do an investigation, you're going to tell people, hey, you got it in time, let's maintain. Hey, you didn't get it in time, let's reinforce. Hey, you're going to have to replace. And so this hotel that we're talking about right now might be in one of those that minimally, to secure the situation, they're going to have to reinforce all these balconies, whether they need it or not, based on this first investigation that we got. Do you agree with that, Lance?
Yep, I totally agree.
All right, so let's continue going. Let's see what else you got here.
Okay, additional related cost items for spalling, the crack fill. It's not spalled, but there's cracks. You fill it, paint it. Rebar replacement, you cut out rebar, replace it. You mentioned earlier that there's now better rebar. There's epoxy coated, and there's also fiber bars, gator bar,
fiber
for
bars.
example, and those don't corrode because there's no metal inside it,
Right.
which is good. And then you have CMU block spalls. Water gets in. If you look at the picture on the right, it's not painted, so there's no protection. I mean, the paint or waterproofing is like paint on a car. If you don't drive around, you don't have paint on your car, it's going to start rusting. It's the same way with a building.
Yeah.
You know, any kind of concrete. Additional cost items, caulking, sealant, very important at your openings where you have your windows, your walls, sliding glass. Older building, you're looking at now, this is an old apartment building where they have solid metal, iron railing. And once the railing gets corroded, you can't paint over it, like scrape the corrosion off and paint. It's too bad. You're going to have to weld a new piece in. And then on the right, you have the newer in the 70s aluminum railing, hollow aluminum. And this one has embedded. So the railing posts are embedded in the concrete. What happens is water seeps in where the posts are anchored into the concrete, and then you have spalling. So the idea is to drill and fill. What that means is you drill holes in and you inject some kind of material in it so that the humidity doesn't build up excess water at the base of the posts, and that's what causes the spalling. And then people who are going out to bid for spalling repair, you're going to get a base bid versus unit cost. I always, when I'm running my spalling projects, ask for a base bid from the contractor and unit costs. The caveat is beware of the lowest bidder because the quantities may be different. Your low bid may be lesser quantities than the highest bid. So it's best to double check everything and understand, you know, what you're looking at. Hire a consultant. Spalling repair is not easy to do. It's technical in nature. So you need to hire consultants to help guide you along the way.
Can you speak a little bit more about cement and how, you know, when you do a one-piece pour, it's monolithic. But as soon as you put in a repair, those two pieces of cement don't like each other from the get-go.
Okay, well, it's funny that you mentioned the word cement because cement is actually
concrete.
One part of concrete. So the cement, along with aggregate, water, and sand, mix it all together, dries, becomes concrete. Of course, you add reinforcing steel in it. So cement is just one part of it. There's a lot of misunderstanding of the term. Like if you look at the high-rise building like one, is that building's a cement building. That's actually not. It's a concrete building made of cement.
Right.
So
no, but I'm saying when you do have spalling and you have your concrete first slab built 55 years ago, and then you come in and patch it, you know what I'm saying, on the front nose. Sometimes the patch, which is also a concrete repair, when you have two them getting together, sometimes the one will not like the other unless you have that milk that you put on there to make you know, marry them together. But two separate pours at two separate times they'll act differently in the future when there's heat and the humidity. One that's been around for 55 years will act differently than one that you just poured a year ago.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's why there's we use specialized concrete, structural concrete that's a little different from the concrete bags that you buy at the, you know, home improvement store. So the concrete we use is the mixture of aggregate built in, and sometimes it has the corrosion protection built in also.
Gotcha. So you got bids, like you say, be aware of the lowest bid. So, you know, you get a consultant to help you understand. Everything has a per unit price. Everything has an estimated area of costs. And you can always say, you know, this job should be no more than $250,000. And if you're getting bids in 350, 450 land, and you're also getting bids in 150, you have to be careful of those. But most educated building engineers know the approximate cost of something. So be careful and always get a third party to help you decide who to pick. So any further now, base bid, unit cost, you talked about that, right? So
yeah,
you have to be
this
careful.
This is just an analysis based on jobs that I work on and trying to educate property managers, board members, and even contractors. It depends on the unit costs of what they're charging. And let me explain. The unit cost is, let's say you have a spall and it's per square foot spall or per linear foot spall. There's a unit cost per square foot or per linear foot. So every contractor is not bidding using the same numbers. One contractor A might bid $150 per square foot and contractor B might bid $125 per square foot. So it all depends. It's just good to have somebody help you analyze all the numbers.
Yeah, we call it apples for apples bidding. Sometimes you'll accept apples for oranges bidding because, everybody's looking at it a little bit different. That's not too bad. And sometimes that's all you can use and you have to go. But as soon as you get apples for bananas, there's a monkey in the mix, and you got to identify that person and get them out of the bid process. It only confuses everybody because now you're going to try to get the apples pricing guy to match the price of the bananas guy, and the bananas guy is nowhere in the game. He doesn't know what he's doing. And so it's very important that it's apples for apples.
Then you call the next contractor and he gives you a lemon.
Yeah, and then there's Lemon, the sour guy. So
Yeah,
tell us about.
Oh,
you
okay.
just talked about this.
Yeah, thanks for asking. This is interesting. I don't only sit around and rest on my laurels. I actually educate myself. I go and spend money and time. And this one, I attended it was in Las Vegas, called the Concrete Expo, and it's huge. There's like thousands and thousands of contractors and engineers that go to that, and we learn concrete repair specs, general industry standards. There's ACI, American Concrete Institute, ICRI, we call it, the International Concrete Repair Institute. So believe it or not, for spalling repair, we got a lot of specs and industry standards that we can rely on. It's not just going there and, hey, fix this spall and be done with it. So
yeah,
it becomes an art and a science at the same time. There's a whole bunch of stuff to learn. And it's not only concrete, because there's corrosion factor, like you mentioned, and it goes hand in hand. So, and we're not only talking about high-rise buildings per se. We talk about bridges and roadways and mines and all that. So it's all lumped it together. It's amazing the different trades that, and it's available every year. And people who are in the industry, I urge you to attend, because there's a lot to learn.
Thank you for that piece. I'll tell you also, I also went to Las Vegas. I was invited by the AIA. I taught a fire escape class, the first ever in the nation, if not the world. There's never been a fire escape class, and I taught a fire escape class in Las Vegas. And it's just that you go there to get educated, but you can also go there to educate others. And I taught the first ever AIA fire escape awareness class, not only in the US, but also in the world, because there was nobody else has ever even thought about it. Because as you know, fire escapes are the bastard child of egress, out of sight, out of mind. And until it hurts or kills somebody, nobody cares about other egress issues, which we'll get into later on in this seminar. So let's talk about some of these other things.
Oh, yeah. Concrete repair specs, demolition, chipping protocol. Here's where it gets technical. If you look at the photo, it's you got railing and a balcony. You have exposed rebar. You see the horizontal bars. You don't have just the contractor just chip willy-nilly and then repair it. We require saw cutting in geometric shapes, so when they pour back the concrete, it looks nicer. It's either a square or rectangle or something. It doesn't look like some weird jigsaw puzzle. And then we require demolition 3 inches beyond the corrosion. So you have a corroded rebar. That's not where it ends. We go and demo more concrete 3 inches beyond that, so that and look for better condition rebar, so that when we pour back, we're pretty much known that it's not going to spall anytime soon in the future, because we took care of the corrosion, not only the corrosion, but areas where it wasn't corroded. Then if you look at the other image, it's me at the World of Concrete show. I entered this contest. they give you time and you mix your concrete, you fill in this little box and trowel it and all that. And I won second place. Second place, what was the prize? Nothing. First place was $1,000. So I almost won. And the guy who won it was a contractor. And he said, hey, you did a pretty good job. What contractor you work for? I said, I'm an engineer. I don't do this for a living, but I inspect your guys' work. He felt sorry for me. He took me to lunch.
Listen, I'll give you my concrete story, and I want to ask you right afterwards, who put rebar and concrete together? I want to see if you can tell me what year did that finally come in? Because I understand why rebar is a brother to concrete, especially in certain construction. But let me tell you what I had. My first involvement of rebar and concrete was in San Diego. I'm not San Diego, in Long Beach, California. I got a fire escape inspection on a building built in 1917. It was a complete concrete building, no iron other than rebar everywhere. And even the fire escapes were all made of concrete. The stairs were all made of concrete. The supports were made of concrete. The slabs and the platforms were made of concrete. And I got my first lesson on just spalling and what happens. But again, it was a 1917 building. We had so much spalling happen, and exactly what you just described. We had to go and in this and go beyond 2 to 3 inches beyond every rebar, cut out every rotten rebar, reinstall with wiring of some sort new rebar that had obviously some protection, and back in. So it's not, hey, knock on this and just coat the rotten rebar. It's not. You got to, in some cases, remove that rebar, put in fresh rebar, and then re-cement it back in with concrete. So, but who came up with this crazy idea that reinforced concrete with rebar was an answer for slabs, buildings, and all that? When did that happen?
I'm not really sure. I think it was like around early 1900s or something like that, when rebar first came on the market. But yeah, it's interesting. Here's a little backstory. I was in Rome about a year ago, and I inspected buildings there, Colosseum, and old buildings that are Cisco. They were older than you. Can you believe that? But anyway, they didn't use rebar. None of those buildings had rebar. They had just blocks carved out of limestone or marble or whatever, and they laid those blocks together, and it was precise. I couldn't even fit my credit card in the joints. That's how close it was. So I'm thinking, how can they build these big buildings, pyramids, and a Colosseum building way back thousands of years ago, and they're still standing? And today they're building these high-rise reinforced buildings, and in 15, 20 years, we got problems. So something's wrong.
Yeah, or total collapse like it happened in Florida, right? What happened in Florida?
Yeah. So continuing on concrete repair specs, there's a rebar replacement protocol. You don't just throw rebar in anywhere, anytime. Corrosion remover and treatment. You have to grind the rebar, remove the corrosion to treat it before. Now, if the piece of rebar, the cross section, and if you're looking at the rebar, the cross section, if it's corroded more than 50%, then we spec out that you got to take that piece of rebar out and put a new one in. So we don't leave the old rebar there, even if they grind it down and you can see nice shiny metal. That's a no-no. Concrete product, we specify the type of product. Concrete coverage, curing time. Concrete coverage is important because so many buildings built, they don't have 2-inch concrete cover over the rebar. You got 1.5, or you got 1/4 inch or whatever. And that's a problem with spalling because you don't have enough concrete covering the rebar, and it's easy for the rebar to get wet and corrode. Documentation, when you're doing a concrete spal project, make sure the contractor takes before and after photos, right? Before, during, and after. I require all of that just to back up the charges and all that. So that middle picture is nice because that's actually, I took that photo of piece of area in a road. They had a concrete roadway and they didn't have enough coverage and cars drove over it. That's why that piece is shiny, because the wheels of the vehicles were cleaning the rebar. So it's always shiny like that. We take measurements, we document location, spall type. So we don't just tell the contractor to fix the spall. We document basically every square inch of repair that they're doing, because they're charging unit costs. So yeah, this is of a basement parking area. So we measure it, document what was done and all that.
So we're here now. We're getting closer to the end, and these people want to know what to do. Okay, so let's play some suggestions. Let's tell everybody just what's going on, what you can do. So we have this first guy. He's Joe Maintenance. He's Joe Maintenance in your building, and he's got his screwdriver with him. You know what I'm saying? And so we're gonna have a little fun, but at the same time tell you what you can do. And again, we already talked about this. You can maintain your fire escape because you have a program of some. I mean, you're not your fire escape, your railings. So maintain them because there's nothing wrong with them. They just, yes, stay on top of them, keep maintaining them. You can reinforce them because in your investigation, you found, my God, they're weak, not broken, not catastrophic. They're just weakened. Yeah, I definitely see rust. I definitely see that it's wiggling a little bit. Reinforce it. Same bolts, same connection, or reinforce it. Add a clip. Do whatever you have to do. Or you're at a catastrophic state. You got to replace. Those are your only three options to buy time. That's the only three options you have. Keep maintaining, reinforce, and then keep maintaining, and be prepared, because it's so advanced that you are definitely 5, 15, 25 years away from replacement. Because once you've let it go a little bit, it's already accelerating. You have to do. So here's the first guy you're going to use. And this is, we call him Joe, facilities director. He's the guy that gets sent out, and he's going to do his thing. He's going to wiggle the railings, and he's going to do this. He's going to go to the other side. And so he's going to wiggle that side. Looks pretty good. And he says, oh, I forgot to test it. And he's going to. So, guys, sometimes that's all you can afford. Right, Lance? A little something is better than nothing, guys. So if your maintenance guy is going to do a visual examination, okay, the second option you have is you hire somebody that's inexperienced. He's already got his engineer's hat. He just came out. He doesn't have as many years as Lance. And he says, you know, I think I got a program, and I'm going to do this. And he brings you to his factory or to and he says, let me show you what I'm going to do for you. He goes, I kick harder than anybody else. And that's his attack plan for you, is that if I can't kick it, then, you know, so guys, you do need a third-party professional person, and a lot of times the documents that you need at the end of this needs a structural engineer stamp. Is that correct, Lance?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, so those two guys will not give you the document you need that you may keep in files, that in case there's an incident, you will give it to the insurance company and you're covered. When you have a document from somebody that inspected it on a routine basis, let's say every 5 years, like the rest of America, there's a 5-year rule on some of these, including California, which has a 6-year rule right now because of an incident. So, but the things that are there, you have to trust your manufacturer. You have to trust your installers. So just so you're aware, step one, let's trust your manufacturer. Let's trust your installer, because they've done testing. And what is their testing? At their factories, they're going to yank on these railings that they installed. They're going to yank on some of these pieces until the breaking point. we are never going to test to the breaking point. We are forced to inspect to see, will it handle normal, normal wear and tear, and we only have to have a 200-pound concentrated load. We will never go there and do this. Here we go. Here we go. Let's keep going. Not enough. Let's keep going. No, Lance and I will never, go to this point. We're not going to test it to the breaking point. You want a company that you guys trust that basically says, give me 200 or 225 concentrated load. Guys, these are companies that have tested the glass railings and how far can you push it. Then they start testing if it does shatter, what happens? If shattering, can somebody get through it? Nope. Here, we're going to laminated glass is there to protect things from happening. But that's what your manufacturer is doing. They've given you testing on all the railing styles that you have, whether they're glass or iron, and their job is to show you that you're not going to get through the glass, you're not going to get through the iron, because what the manufacturer and the installer on all your buildings that are hotels and condominiums, even if you want to take a coffee cup and whip it at the glass, you know what I'm saying? It's made to basically reject. So here's another dropping of the ball, a nice iron ball. So trust your manufacturer. What is swing testing? Your manufacturers have all done this. They've thrown, if you throw your body at these things, this is where it's going to have resistance. So we trust that every railing, that's been tested to 500 pounds, 1,000 pounds. We only need to test it to 225 pounds. And we don't do this type of swing testing, right? That would involve too much rigging, right, Lance? We'd have to rig up something with a cable from above, and and we'd have to have a certain weight bag of some sort, right? And God forbid one of these things does want to break. We don't want anything falling down below, correct?
Right.
So everybody has, all over the world, everybody has a little bit of something, an idea of what they're testing. And so we've done this. We've pulled this compilation around there for you guys to show you that trust your manufacturer. What we're testing has already been approved and installed correctly. Now the step is we can do this to the top rail, but we don't have this thing that we have to do outside, every hotel room. So we're going to be manually testing after the installation. What is that? It's basically a contraption of some kind that allows us to manually push on the glass down below, push on the railing up above. 225 pounds, Lance. Is that good enough for you?
Well, yeah, that is. I mean, the code is 200, but remember, that's just the minimum standards.
Right. Well, that's all they want. They don't tell us to test it to the breaking point, right? So we go to 225 and we push on the middle, we push on the top, and we push on the two ends that has the attachments, right? So at most railing or balconies are going to get tested in 3 locations: the left, the right, the middle. And if it has a long balcony, you're going to get the left, the right, the middle, and then splitting that difference. So you're going to get 5 tests. Is that satisfactory to you, Lance? Would that be satisfactory to you?
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep it going. So this is that screw. You know what I'm saying? Any contraption, we can manually, to keep costs down, you got to stay away from the hydraulics. Here's a guy testing cement railings. Check this out.
Children were playing on them. They broke from underneath the children. So today we're testing additional balusters to see if they can withstand the load capacity set forth by the Florida Building Code. So here we have our load test area. We have concrete balusters. This is the site we've chosen to perform load test. We're going to be performing 2 tests, a 400-pound point load test and up to a 100-pound distributed load test. These concrete balusters are installed. They're supposed to be pinned. They're supposed to be anchored to the concrete slab that's below them. In this case, it doesn't appear that they were anchored everywhere. That's why we're testing them. Now our test rig is set up. We have load at about 6 pounds to start, so it's essentially zeroed. We're ready to start. Okay, test was complete at 400 pounds. Point load application at the top of the baluster. All we observed was the rail starting to pull away from the column. No other damage observed. Here's our second testing setup. We're testing the intermediate point on the baluster. The 2001 Florida Building Code specifies 200 pound at any intermediate member, so we'll be testing 200 up to a load of 400 pounds, which will be double a 2-time safety. The balusters have sustained a 400-pound point load without any cracking or noticeable displacement. We're gonna let it sit for a few minutes and make sure that nothing else happens.
So if I may, Lance, you agree with that, right? A lot of railings maybe in Hawaii, you're going to have some beautiful ones made out of these concrete pieces, properly put together, properly attached. You want to load test, a point load test at the top of the rail, a point load test at the middle, and then he tested, I don't know if he showed it on here, but he brought 500 pounds of weight to do 400 pounds of testing. Is that pretty much the right way to do it? And it's pretty manual what he's done there. He's got 50-pound sandbags, created this resistance wall, for lack of a better, and then he's doing this test. Would you agree with that? Would you sign off on that if he did it that way and gave you back information?
Yeah, except I don't think you need to go 400, 300, 400. That's overkill.
That's overkill. It's 220. 200 is the minimum, and we do 225 just to play it safe. Meaning that it's the ass test. If my ass drinking and smoking leans on that thing, you're exerting about 200 pounds on a lean. And not even that, a body that it weighs 200 pounds leaning on a railing is only exerting about 100 to 125 pounds. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, maybe instead of bringing all the equipment, we'll just have you lean on the railing.
Oh, Lance, we can't go there, Lance. Come on. Here we go. Hydraulic testing. These are the guys that are going to come in and they're going to bring hydraulics. They're going to bring in, hey, we need to attach. We may have to cut off your floors. They've got their hydraulic pumps and they're going to test your inside railings, your outside railings. So these are just examples of what we found on the internet of, how disruptive some of these things are. So you better have a simple system to go and test these rails for 200 pounds. So here's another system that they come in and they're going to exert 400. As you can see, they're bringing it to the breaking point. Only 200 is needed. You don't need 300 or 400. And again, this is on a glass. You know what I'm saying? So you need to do it in the middle. You need to do it on top. You need to do it on the sides because you're really testing the fasteners on either side, right? So let's keep it going. Let's see as you can see, glass, my God, is very strong, unbelievably strong. And we're only testing to 200. So some of the posts that are holding these things up have been tested by the manufacturers. You know what I'm saying? So the hydraulic people, when they get in, they test at the factory, they test at the testing facilities, they test. So trust me, some of the rails you have bought, you know what I'm saying, are acceptable. Look, they push these things to 1,000 pounds so we are accepting that the manufacturers and the installers are putting in a product that will resist minimally 200 pounds. You agree with that, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So some of these tests are horizontal. Some of these tests are going to be vertical. You know what I'm saying? And they're putting a lot. So we believe that everything we're going to be looking at is manufacturer tested. And one of the things we're not going to do is test from the top coming down. You know what I'm saying? And that's a test that you're going to see here. That's the horizontal resistance of 400. There's the vertical resistance. We're never going to do this, right, Lance? There's no vertical testing of any kind, correct?
No, you don't need to do that.
Now, some of the hotels may not even have glass. They may have mesh. You know what I'm saying? So, you have to test this mesh to see if it doesn't pull away or disassemble itself in certain testing. So, again, anything and everything is for, can people get through glass or get through the mesh? This is obviously stress testing it beyond the 200, but this is, again, a compilation of all the things out there in the country that we've been looking at. Here's the tool. This is a $5,000 tool made of aluminum. It has and for these guys to bring these tools or have 5 or 10 of these tools at your apartment or your condo or your hotel, these things ain't cheap. So again, depending on who you pick to do the job will be determined by, so how can we simplify this so that all of a sudden, this is some of the work that we've done when we have to lateral load test every fire escape, old or new.
Took 200 pounds.
And all it is we have a simple mechanism that exerts a force and pushes out in several locations. So this is where, you know, some of the hotels
All right,
and some of the
200-pound lateral
apartments
load
you have that
down
have
here.
railings outside on cement slabs,
Biggest issue is
they need those
bolts are
railings
undersized
tested, right, Lance?
on both sides.
Yep, that's right.
So you might have wood structures. You might have a wood structure that has these aluminum railings. They too need to be tested. And what is it? Simple 200 pounds. So create the tool that basically is going to allow you to basically exert a standardized force of 225 pounds. By the way, Lance, whether it's wood or cement stairs, this is called a cascading load test. And depending on the size, you're going to put anywhere from 350 to 450 pounds of weight. And that's all you do, just cascade. It's like a rolling weight box is coming down all the way down. So Lance, if somebody did this for you, would you okay it?
Yeah, that sounds good. But I'm kind of concerned because I definitely know a lot of buildings are not going to pass that.
Well, we always do a pre-load test evaluation. Don't think we just load test things. As soon as we find deficiencies, you can't load test. You stop the load test. A pre-load test evaluation will have deficiencies, means you have to repair it before we can load test it. And the key about load testing is this: there is no load testing after you fix something because you fixed it. It's in the code. The NFPA code says the authority having jurisdiction shall accept by load test or other evidence of strength. And what is that? If you fixed it, repaired it back to its original condition, there is no load test for the next 15 to 25 years. So again, if you're on a fire escape, if you're testing a ladder, some of these things will apply. You do have a few fire escapes left in your entire island. Not many. The rest have all been replaced with cement. And this is called a load test that involves 100 pounds per square foot on cement and or steel. And a majority of Hawaii is cement, poured in place, staircases. But this is just us showing you again, you know, cascading load tests. In some cases, there's no other way to load test it other than to bring 50-pound sandbags to the location, and we cascade coming down. So you load test the first platform. 100 pounds per square foot means that a 10 by 10 fire or a 5 by 10 fire escape is going to need 5,000 pounds of weight on that. And these are all cement. These are all cement stairs. You know, the ones that you buy and then you just attach to the metal stringers, weld them to it. So how do you load test those? The best way to load test cement stairs is to basically do what's called a cascading load test. So after you complete the load test at the very top, you then come down. And as you can see, Lance, unlike you, I do work sometimes on load tests. You know what I'm saying? I just don't ride around in my Mercedes like you do.
I like that. I even saw a little image of you on your phone ordering lunch. So that's
there.
Good.
You go. So this is called a cascading load test, and basically for a period of time, you just keep moving the treads for 5 to 15 minutes to the next, and that's us doing the lateral load test on the railings using that mechanism, that tool, and we just, you know, basically exert 200 pounds to make sure it's going to hold. This is us on a very small platform in Seattle, and as you can see, the weight boxes, which carry anywhere from 30 to 50 pounds, are basically there so that, you know, you have to load test. It's required by law. In certain states in the US, they've already mandated the load testing of all fire escapes, okay? And so this is what's called a fold-out ladder, so that when you're ready to use it and to keep people from breaking into your building, you would use that, okay? Again, no ladders allowed. This is load testing procedures. You have to submit this to some city officials to say, what are you going to do? Show me before you do it. So we have load test procedures. This is some of the strapping that you would use when you're load testing. You know, some of these have 2,000 pound rating, 5,000 pound rating. You have a 1 ton or 2 ton crank, you know, chain fall. You use obviously your digital scales as needed. So, you know, 48 cases of 30 pounds is, you know, this is how you transport it back and forth. This is going to be us in California, load testing a very small system. Again, you know, load testing the left and the right, hammer test all the staircases. And then what you have is the following video is going to be us load testing the left and the right side simultaneously of a fire escape where you put up 40% take measurements before, during, and after. And what you want to do is you want to basically now load test the same floor at the same time. So alternating floors are being load tested here. And you can get in and out. See the guy measuring the before, during, and after to make sure there's no deflection. The guy at the very top is doing lateral load testing, so it's a team of 3 to 5, depending. And the key right now is just, how are you exerting 100 pounds per square foot on some of these 75 to 125-year-old structures, okay? And what do we have left? What do we have left is now back to you. Because what happens here, Lance, is that we have not an isolated incident that occurred on Hawaii. The building to the left is just as concerning as the building to the right of this. But you have a piece here that 2 years ago, no, in 2017, Lance, there was a death.
Yeah, 2016.
2016, there was a death, and this is the extras, whether it be the egress extras, whether it be railings, and whether it be, you conclude on another video we're going to show. But before we get started, let's see if anybody has questions for us before we talk about the third thing that needs to be looked at, because we're focusing on balconies and railings, and that's what this is about, because it will hurt or kill somebody. But let's see if anybody has a question for us from the people out there. Questions, anybody?
I got a question from a member in the audience.
Yeah.
She's a newly mom, and she wants to know what age is considered to be a safe, what age is considered to be safe for a child to be out in the balcony. She's a newly mom. So.
I have an answer for that. And Lance will probably comment on this also, but the law has made it so that a 4-inch ball of any child, any age, cannot get through the bars. So what age can I leave my child out there? I don't recommend it unattended, but you are now protected. All railings will not let a child's head. Before it used to be 6, and then before that was 8 inches separation. Right now, the average is 3.5 inches and behind, but a 4-inch sphere cannot go through any of these railings that you see below, because it's against the law. But you may have a pre-existing non-conforming structure, an older building that has 6-inch spacing, or it has 8-inch spacing, and that's the key. So, moms, be aware that if you have new railings, the sphere test is the first thing. And even at the very bottom, it's usually 2 inches at the very bottom to 3 inches, and not 4 inches or more, because that's when children can actually crawl underneath. But that's a Lance, you want to throw in an answer?
Yeah, you're right. That you can do a test. You get a tennis ball, and if it can fit through your railing pickets, then it's unsafe. If it doesn't go through, then you're okay. But here's a caveat. Even if it meets the code, what if the condition is bad? There's wood rot. If it's wood, if it's metal, it's corroded. If it's concrete, it's spalled. So just be careful. I would say the age of a child, just don't leave children unattended. It may be dangerous. Just like in a playground, you don't leave a child unattended. So yeah, that's my comment.
So let's play this one, unlike Moana Surfside. This one, which you were part of and you were an expert witness on, somebody did die. So let's take a listen.
Hey everybody, and thank you for joining us tonight. More than a year after a railing gave way and left one man dead, Ala Moana Shopping Center says it is done fixing the rusty railings. The tragic accident also critically injured another man and shined a critical spotlight on safety at the popular mall.
And now that the railing work is done, we wanted to know, is it safe for shoppers? Our Alexander Zane spoke with a construction expert. Alex.
Hi, Marissa. I spoke with our construction expert who tells me he believes the new railings are considerably safer, both because of the design and the material used to build them.
10,000 feet of new railing flanks Ala Moana's perimeter and walkways. The condition noticeably different from these pictures taken in 2016. Building expert Lance Luke took a look at the new railings today.
Ala Moana Shopping Center is a lot safer now. Brand new railing with concrete work. In the past, the old design was railing basically to the ground level, and that was part of the problem with the steel railing that corroded, concrete cracking, spalling.
The condition of the railings at the state's largest outdoor shopping mall was thrust into the spotlight when one of the banisters gave way in October of 2016. 21-year-old Nicholas Freitas died, and 21-year-old Macroy Nagato was severely injured, having to spend months in a Colorado rehabilitation center. Luke says with construction finished, the railings are up to code and, most importantly, safe. He explains the reason the new railings were made using aluminum rather than steel.
Steel actually corrodes. It corrodes a lot faster than other types of metal like aluminum or stainless steel.
In a statement, the general manager of Ala Moana said today, Ala Moana Center is constantly evaluating and adjusting to help in its mission of providing an outstanding environment and experience for all.
The attorney for the two victims told me today his client who survived the fall is home but wasn't able to comment on his condition. The city issued the mall a notice of violation after the accident, but the case is closed now that the work is done. Howard Mercer?
So, Lance, I don't know if you were able to give away, was the settlement, because you were an expert witness on that, was the settlement for the person who died significant and in the millions?
Yeah, it was huge, both for the estate of the person that died, and then the other person is actually severely injured for life, basically incapacitated. And so it was big. I also want to add that the photo that you saw of the corroded railing, with the heavy corrosion at the base, was a photo that I took that I gave to the news. The other thing I want to add is that the railing that collapsed was on the 3rd floor. It wasn't on the 20th floor or high up. So if you just think about that, 3 stories, a person falls over because a railing gave way and dies. That's how critical the situation is. So it kind of doesn't matter what floor you're on. The condition is the railings have to be safe.
An OSHA requirement is that you wear a harness after 6 feet. So if you're a worker and you go up a ladder more than 6 feet, you're supposed to be in harness, because you can fall 6 feet and kill yourself if you fall just the right way and it involves your head. You know what I'm saying? You will kill yourself after 6 feet.
Yeah,
so,
there's reports. Yeah, you're right. There's reports of people trimming trees, fell off. An older person was on a 4-foot ladder. He fell off and died.
Yep, because the fall, your head, if that's the first thing that hits the floor, it'll crack your neck. Something will happen, and many people. But OSHA stops any worker from going above 6 feet on any ladder without a harness. And should an event occur, the owner of the business is held liable for that death, simply because liability-wise, because they allowed somebody to go beyond 6 feet without a harness, a full harness. All right, let's listen to this.
At 6, 3 days after part of a building collapsed in Kalihi, badly injuring 2 men, we are hearing from one of the victims.
We also learned that city inspectors were at the building last year, but only ordered 2 small repairs.
Chelsea Davis is live in Kalihi tonight to tell us more. Chelsea.
Ke'ahi Mahea, we are on Pu'uhale Road, and as you can see behind me, no repairs have been done since Monday. There is now yellow police tape around that gap in the 2nd floor of the Lanai, and a wooden board blocking that corner. Residents tell me they're afraid to live and sleep here. 25-year-old Edward Samuel says he was roughhousing with a friend on the 2nd floor of this 4-story apartment building in Kalihi Monday when the concrete wall gave way. His sister interprets for him.
The bricks was covered him, like was on top of him, the whole body.
The men fell about 12 feet. His friend was only slightly hurt, but Samuel was taken to the hospital with serious injuries.
His hand, his legs, his head, his eye. and then in his mouth inside.
The city's Department of Planning and Permitting issued this notice of violation in August of last year. It says a third-floor unit was in violation for the front door frame rotting and the concrete eave above the patio was spalling. The city says corrections were made and the owner was not fined. The owner reminded in writing to maintain the structure in safe condition at all times. The violation notice doesn't mention other problems.
If I was the building inspector for the city, I would have wrote up additional comments to my report in addition to the specific item that he looked at. But I don't know, I can't speak for the city building department.
Building expert and construction engineer Lance Luke says it doesn't look like the building was constructed properly or is in compliance with today's standards. And he doesn't believe it's safe for the people to be in there now.
It's up to every building owner to maintain their property. It's not up to the city and county building department to go and monitor and inspect every building. That's not their job.
The city issued another violation notice after Monday's incident, saying the damaged areas and third and fourth floor railings also need repair. Luke estimates about $800,000 worth of repair work. The city says they did not inspect the entire building, and they're still in the process of hiring 7 more inspectors. We went to the owner's home to try to speak to them. A woman there said she was the owner's sister, and a number she gave me to get a hold of the owners was disconnected.
So, Lance, sorry about the volume on this one. It was very low, but everybody gets it. This is that extra thing that we talked about, that this is an egress investigation now. This is a two-part for you, and that is the building has its own set of problems that are all violations, and the owner may or may not do it while collecting rent. But the one thing that's important for everybody to know, that egress system, and that's what this was part of, the egress system here is the failure. If they're going to fix anything mandatory, it's going to be that egress system so that people can get out by themselves without firefighters. If all of a sudden that egress system is what hurts anybody, your insurance is not going to pay, because the way that they can voluntarily get out is the reason why they got hurt. It was preventable. If it's preventable, that means the insurance company is going to say, I'm not going to pay. You could have maintained this. You know what I'm saying? So anytime you could maintain and prevent an incident from occurring, you are liable. The insurance company steps away and steps out. And you were expert witness on this case also, or not, Lance?
No, I wasn't an expert on it, but the news people asked me what the cost was to repair, and I estimated about $800,000. Now, this is a small apartment building. It's only 3.5 stories, 4 stories, one top section, but they had major spalling. And if you look at the photo, that's a railing wall made out of CMU, concrete blocks. And about the fire escape egress, if there was a fire and people are trying to escape and they end up falling off the railing and getting injured or dying, they didn't get injured or died from the fire. They got injured because the building was unsafe because of the spalling repair. So this is just a situation where it was pretty bad, and it's not only this building. It's a lot of older apartment buildings that were built in the 50s, 60s, early 70s have the same kind of construction, and exterior walkways for egress for fire safety, corroded railing, and all that. So it's all over the place. And then we got high-rise condos which are similar with spalls. So it's a major problem that we need to address.
And this again, you know, is, even though this seminar was on nothing but railings and balconies, we're basically coming in that the older you get, these 3 to 5 story buildings, their only solution to get these people out of a building is these walls made of cement, married to these staircases made of cement, married to these railings that keep you inside the stair and keep you inside the platforms that as you exit down. And nobody's looking at this. You know what I'm saying? So right now, and in our future, any of these buildings that you would be investigating in the future, your you have to make a comment now to whoever you're dealing with to say, hey, you called me here to investigate your building, but I have to give you two reports. One report is that your building needs this on the basement, it needs that on the third floor, and it needs this other thing with spalling, and it needs this other thing. And then you have to write them a separate report and says, hey, just on your egress requirements by law to keep people here paying rent, or to buy or sell this property, your egress system is compromised. So at this time, I have to notify you that you need to fix this egress system, whether you want to or not. You must fix it, because I'm not going to give you a document of any kind that says that everything's okay and you're going to take your sweet time fixing things. Right now, the egress requirement is an aside to the original report. You are required by law that as soon as you have anything that's a life safety concern or a imminent danger concern, to keep your licenses, you must notify the building department or the fire department that there's an imminent danger situation at a building, and they take over. You don't have to stay there anymore, but you have to protect your licenses. What did you know? When did you know it? What did you do about it is the critical piece, so that people minimally must maintain their means of egress at all times, so that tenants can get out by themselves. Firemen can go in and get people that are incapacitated, and firemen can use it to, in case there's all hell breaks loose, they know that they can count on the fire escapes. So how many of the buildings you've ever inspected really concern themselves with the egress, Lance?
Oh, there's a whole bunch. There's a whole bunch.
That
The other
they
thing
did
I
or
made-
did not concern themselves with the egress?
What was that?
Did they concern themselves with the egress or not concern themselves with the
No,
egress?
they weren't concerned about it. They didn't want to hear about it, basically. And then I like to throw in another comment about insurance, because the insurance companies now are getting really strict, and they're not covering buildings that have problems, spalling, cast iron pipe problems, egress problems, and so forth. So it's becoming an insurance situation also.
Yep. So let me tell you what happened in Boston, because we're wrapping up pretty close right now. We have a few minutes to go, and let's open up to some questions that they may have out there. We got about 7 minutes in this 2-hour seminar, but this is what happened in Boston that changed fire escapes nationwide. This picture that you have here happened out of a 4-story. So you see the fireman there saving the woman and her niece. All of a sudden, instantaneously, the catastrophic collapse of a fire escape that should never fall. Never. It's impossible. But when you ignore it for 50 years, this is what happened. Look at her falling. Look at her niece. Look at all that grading, all that weight. He saved himself because his hand is extending. He grabbed a ladder in 1975. The fire truck ladder that came up to grab him. He grabbed it. He saved himself. She died. This went all across the country to Chicago. They showed the picture. It won a Pulitzer Prize for this guy for this photo. And all of a sudden, only in Boston did they change the law, because she died. They said, hey, we should be looking at these fire escapes. We shouldn't rely on owners to maintain their fire escapes. We should have a 5-year rule. So they did. They changed the law. It's the only state that had a 5-year rule on fire escapes till 2012. The only state that had a 5-year mandate is only Massachusetts till 2012, when the IFC finally came in. And here we are back in Boston. Just last year, the Boston Globe put out an article, right, with a brand new mayor. And what did she find? That, we thought we had this under control. We found out that of the 9,637 fire escapes, only 3,000 in the history since 1975 have been certified. So there's 6,000 uncertified fire escapes in Boston. And it took a fatal collapse. But all of a sudden now landlords are realizing that if they don't certify these fire escapes, the insurance companies, like you say, they don't pay the incident. Now your building is up for sale. And so what happens is that as these people, go into a lawsuit, the banks don't want, you have a mortgage on that and the insurance is not paying anything. They just give up these buildings. So these people that got hurt, all they have is not only the value of this person who got sued, but they take their building. These people lose their building because they haven't properly maintained, as required by law, the 5-year certification. So what do we have here? We have a solution that if anybody wants to take care of anything that they're doing on a building, whether it's the balconies, whether it's the railings, they can visit the Fire Escape Services Network, get all the information you need. It's called fireescapeservicesnetwork.com, or they can call you, Lance, right? Because you'll come in and you'll have, here's your phone number. But again, you have a great name, National Building Expert, right? But they can also visit you at your website, hawaiibuildingexpert.com.
Yep, that's right.
And here's your phone number. So there's the two of us that can help people. Otherwise, trust your local structural engineer. Trust a local, building expert to help you. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times the building official and the fire official, they don't have the information to give you because it's not hot on their list of things to do, because the fire escapes are the bastard child of egress, and railings and balconies have been along for how long? They've been out there for only 50 to 75 years and no maintenance program on a lot of them. So in order for this to not happen anymore, what do we have to do? We have to conclude and train people and see if this is enough to blow the whistle and get things started and have people start a maintenance program of some kind. This is the conclusion of the seminar. Let's see if anybody has last-minute questions for us, and we'll gladly hold for 5, 10, or 15 more minutes and answer any questions that anybody has.
We just got a question for a member in the audience. Who do we contact if we think the balcony is unsafe?
So again, all these people can call our number, fireescapeservicesnetwork.com. Simple number, 800-649-3333. Lance, what's your number?
808-422-2132. Almost forgot my own number.
So
well,
they
the
can
other
also
thing
go,
is, in answer to the question, whoever the building manager is, if it's an apartment building, the building manager owner, if it's a hotel, contact the hotel. If it's a condo building, you contact the condo board or the property manager. That's your first call to make, and then see if anything,
because you're showing that you're
happens.
concerned.
Right,
But
right.
other than that, you want to go on YouTube or go on Google or go on yellowpages.com, type in structural engineer, building engineer on yellowpages.com. And that's the key. You need a third-party examination on your fire escape. You can't do it yourself. There's no documentation that you would use to not only satisfy the city, but to satisfy the insurance company that you know something, you're doing something, and this is what you're doing about it. That puts you back under the insurance umbrella. If you have a concern, get it investigated, because as soon as you have it investigated, you're back under the insurance umbrella, because now you heard something, you're doing something, and the key is that you're trying to get it dealt with, and to the best of your ability within the time frame you have and within the money you have. But if anything is imminent danger or life safety, you're going to cordon those areas off. You're going to support these locations so that nobody's going to else. What did you do to stop anybody from getting hurt? Then you have a plan. Your structural engineer, your building expert is going to come in and say, step 1, let's see if we can continue to maintain. Step 2, let's see if we can reinforce what you have and buy you some time so that in the future, 5, 15, 25 years from now, you're going to replace. And in some rare cases, hey, you're in the replacement mode now. You have to replace what you have here because there is just no. So for example, can a hotel create a barrier system that keeps everybody away 1 foot from ever touching a balcony or a railing? Lance, can that happen?
Yeah, that could happen. It's going to take a lot of money,
Instantaneously.
time,
So you still have a barrier. Now the hotel would have to go in and say, okay, how can we stop any of these pieces that may fall from hurting somebody below? That's a different process of capture or catching or whatever it may be. But The investigation is step one. What did I know? When did I know it? What am I doing about it? Brings insurance coverage back on. Keeping your, closing your eyes, hoping for the best. What occurred here is basically a canary in the coal mine. You guys have gotten a bell that rang on somebody else's property, and it could happen on your property, but start the investigation process. We'd be more than happy to help you. FirescapeServicesNetwork.com is our website. And your website is called what?
HawaiiBuildingExpert.com.
There you go. We do these classes. These are free classes. We'll teach. We'll have conversations with any of you. So please reach out to us. Send us an email to, if you have any questions or concerns. Otherwise, give us a call. Again, my number is 800-649-3333. Lance, your number is what?
808-422-2132.
Perfect. And Lau, let's see if there's anybody with questions. We've got quite a good turnout of people. And does anybody have a question that, whether it be price, whether it be repair ideas, anybody have a question for us? Because we have quite a few people out there. They're all shy. Not many people wanted to show their face. Me and Lance, we have no problem showing our face. We're old. If I see no one, okay, Lance, thank you very much for being a guest speaker.
Sure, you're
I
welcome.
appreciate you being there. So he's on the island.
I believe there's one more speaker says iPhone user. They didn't type in their question.
Yes, I
Looks
have
like
a quick
it's coming.
question.
Yes.
What are your pricing for like do an inspection? Do you charge per room or per building? If like for multiple spaces, what are your pricing options?
So the consultation is the first. So please call the numbers. We'll speak off camera with you guys and discuss that. But yes, it most likely will be a per unit price. And that's the only way you can do it. There's very few people that'll give you a flat rate and say, this is what it is. It'll be a per unit price that you will get. And volume is a factor. But a lot of times the initial evaluation will give you the per unit price after the fact. So a lot of times the sample is what you want. You want to take a couple of samples. You have 20, sample 4 or 5, and that's going to give you an idea of just where you're heading with this situation. Another question that people out there, that's a great question, by the way, because everybody's concerned about cost. You know what I'm saying? And in some cases, we'll teach you how to self-inspect. So in some rare cases, you'll say, hey, your facility, I want to have my facilities guys go through and just get some things just under control at least. Can we do that? Yes. We can teach you how to self-inspect. Okay. Next question. Seeing none. Lance, it was a great class. I think you and I asked each other enough questions, and you and I spoke quite well, explained everything, and if anybody wants a copy of this, it got recorded, so we will send everyone a copy of this video so that you share this with other staff members. Please call Millie, 800-649-3333. Ask Millie for a copy of this so you can share it with owners, department heads. You want to share this with property managers, management companies, whatever. It's free. So there's no cost for us to share this information with you. Again, thank you very much. Lance, thank you very much.
Aloha.
Everybody
thank
else,
you.
thank you very much.
See you next
as they
time.
say, you've been made aware that the balconies and the railings in Hawaii, the paradise of the U.S., need attention. Thank you very much, everybody.